Thank you for joining us. I am Stacey Carmichael. On our first episode, we took a look at the major achievements, policies, and work of the government during its first 20 days in office. In this second installment, we will examine the work of the government from day 21 to day 40. During this period, Guyana saw decisive actions being taken, including the preparation of the 2020 emergency budget.
My greatest vision is to see us all live united. For us to see each other as Guyanese. For us to love each other as Guyanese. For us to protect each other as Guyanese. That is my greatest dream for Guyana.
In the first 20 days of taking office, government hit the ground running, ensuring that the needs of the population, particularly during the pandemic, were adequately addressed as far as resources allowed. However, as the administration approached 40 days in office and President Dr. Irfan Ali sought to reposition the country on an upward trajectory to overcome the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy, sustain livelihoods and provide a better quality of life for the ordinary Guyanese, numerous challenges were faced, including attempts by forces to stir division by manipulating the fears and genuine concerns of our people. Attention to housing was given. Persons without houses and some who lost their jobs to the pandemic began illegally occupying lands in success on the east coast of Demerara. These lands were set aside for sugarcane cultivation and fell under the purview of the National Industrial and Commercial Investments Limited (NISL) and not the Ministry of Housing and Water. Minister of Housing and Water, Colin Crowell, along with a team from NISL, met with the residents to complete applications for house lots and work out a feasible solution in keeping with the government's manifesto promise to provide 50,000 house lots within its first term in office.
It is not that we want you to be dislodged in the area. We want you to own your homes too. That is why we sent the housing team so many times to see you. But there's the right way in doing things and the wrong way. In Guyana, we have to get accustomed to doing things the right way. Otherwise, we'll be developing communities that are not sustainable. We want to help you. We're going to move as fast as possible in this program. But I'm appealing to Guyanese. Let us do it the right way.
On September 6th, the country was thrown into a state of shock and despair with the gruesome murders of Isaiah and Joel Henry at Cotton Tree Village, West Coast, Berbice. As the country tried to come to grips with the manner in which the boys were killed, President Ali vowed that no stone would be left unturned and no resource spared in a quest to bring the perpetrators to justice.
I've engaged a mechanism in which I'll be reaching out to the British government and the RSS, which is the Regional Security Infrastructure, to come to Guyana in support of the Guyana Police Force investigative capacity. Fellow Guyanese, we have to get to the bottom of this. And whatever support is needed, I will reach to that support.
The double murder, which was later followed by the killing of Harry Singh, was met by violent protests. Minister of Home Affairs Robeson Ben at the time issued a call for persons to desist from violent protests on the west coast of Berbice.
No one would want the escalation of any situation on the coast, including the resumption of the blocking of the public highways, to a point which should bring about a further deterioration in the law and order situation out there, and to create the possibility of bringing more harm, physical harm to residents of the area, and to the destruction of property and to further loss of life.
That aside, the construction of additional cells at the Camp Street prison was assessed. When work is complete, the cells will house approximately 180 inmates. Additionally, approval was given for the completion of construction at the Mazaruni prison, which will see approximately 200 inmates being housed at the facility. Similar plans are on the way for the prison facility at Lusignan on the east coast of Demerara.
The minister is proposing building a temporary additional holding facility, but we are looking specifically at an isolation unit for persons being admitted from the court. We have some housing units that we're using right now, so we're trying to get some more of them.
Guyana is recovering from the pain and trauma of a 5-month election process with many twists and turns. President Ali, at his inauguration, made it clear that every citizen has an obligation to ensure we, as a people, never endure such a period.
I am assuring the Guyanese people here and now that the vulgarity and the fraud which were attempted at GCOM and by GCOM in relation to the March the 2nd elections will be fully investigated, and persons implicated will be charged and will face the full force of the law. And there is no force in Guyana that will stop that from happening.
Despite the many challenges, there were momentous occasions to celebrate as well. Water and electricity was for the first time in decades supplied to 42 families living along the Conservancy Dam at Canal No. 1 West Bank Demerara. The President, accompanied by Minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Deodat Indar, and Minister Kroll, delivered the good news to the residents.
I am pleased to inform you that commencing next week, we GWI in-house, because we're now finalizing budgetary resources, but in-house with assistance of machinery from the contractor who has volunteered his machinery, we will start connection to households along the Conservancy starting next week.
These were promises delivered in keeping with the PPPC's manifesto, which addresses both the provision of cheaper and more reliable electricity supply and the improved access to and enhanced quality of water. Over in Lust and Rust, 20 streetlights were donated and installed from the Geico Construction and General Services Incorporated and La Rose Electrical Supplies and Construction to improve security and the livelihood of residents.
Following my visit last week to the area of Lust and Rust, these gentlemen reached out and said they wanted to help in any way that they can. And we sat down through a public-private partnership and we identified the roads that were in deplorable condition. I want to say thank you to these gentlemen for the work that they're doing. And these lights are not going to be received and put down. We already have a team in place that are going to begin installation immediately.
Since returning to office, the PPPC government has commenced the completion of several major infrastructure projects, which began prior to 2015, while spearheading new ones expected to transform and enhance Guyana's landscape. In this vein, the government is forging ahead with its development agenda, which will see an enhancement of traffic flow along the east bank of Demerara corridor with the redesigned Ogle to Diamond bypass road project.
When we came and met the project as it is, the scope of it, it was 208 million US, and that was from Ogle to Diamond. But what was driving up that cost was the number of connectors on the road, and behind Mocha going towards Diamond, there's a lot of swamp there. And for you to do those swamp, the earthworks, cost of the earthworks pushed up the cost. So to 208 million US. Now remember, the Indian government only had 50 million US allocated to this project. So we had to redesign back the project to bring it to the original design, which is between Ogle to Haag-Bosch. It terminates at Haag-Bosch, right? Behind Eccles.
India has accepted the new design for the roadworks. Despite inheriting an infectious diseases facility, which purportedly cost $1.6 billion, government found that it was inoperable, lacking basic amenities such as beds, equipment, and other critical supplies. Following intense efforts by the Ministry of Health to repurpose the facility by the end of August, a mere 4 weeks in government, the isolation section was in operation at the facility with the first 47 beds in place. The facility has also been reconfigured to cater to pre- and postnatal maternity cases, according to Director of Medical and Professional Services of the GPHC, Dr. Fawcett Jeffrey.
Phase 2 is where we will start activating the intensive care unit and the high dependency unit, which is called HDU. But to do that, we need to have piped oxygen, we need to get equipment like ventilators and patient monitors and electrocardiograph machines. We also would like to have the operating suite ready and activated.
Shortly after, the Infectious Disease Intensive Care Unit wing of the GPHC benefited from a donation of several ventilators. There were 3 functional ventilators within the public health system when the government changed. These were centralized at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation. By September, the government had sourced and received pledges for the donation of ventilators, bringing the number to close to 50. Additionally, the protocol for the use of ventilators was changed.
Before we intubate someone, there are certain clinical guidelines that we follow, level of oxygen saturation, and a number of other parameters that is looked at. Once the patient would meet these set of criteria, they would be placed on a ventilator once it's available. That we have now changed because we have more ventilators that are available, and in this sense, those that need a ventilator would be able to get a ventilator.
As part of its COVID response, the Ministry of Health was also able to conduct an analysis at all the regional hospitals with the view of establishing an infectious disease unit at each facility. With a backlog of PCR tests inherited, the government successfully engaged the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, to assist with the processing of results. The National Public Health Reference Laboratory was also given a boost in its capacity to correct this issue. More medical technologists were trained to run samples. 24-hour shifts were implemented to have more samples processed, along with the procurement of an automated polymerase chain reaction machine, which was able to cut the testing time from an average of 9 hours to 2 hours. On September 7, 2020, government created history as it presented its 2020 National Emergency Budget in the National Assembly. It was the fastest prepared budget locally, done in just 6 weeks. The measures outlined in the budget were people-oriented, aimed at resuscitating the economy and bringing significant relief to Guyanese. Those measures included reversal of VAT on electricity and water, and duties on machinery and equipment for recapitalization of key sectors such as mining, forestry, agriculture, and manufacturing. The Because We Care cash grant was restored and increased to $15,000, and the school uniform voucher allowance was doubled to $4,000 per child. Increase in the old age pension from $20,500 to $25,000, and $5 billion in budgetary support for Gaisuko directly. $25,000 cash grant to every household. Pensioners would also benefit from free water, while members of the joint services will benefit from 2 weeks tax-free bonus, and $150 million was allocated for frontline workers. Land lease fees were reversed to the 2014 price. VAT was removed on fertilizers, pesticides, agrochemicals, and key inputs in the poultry sector, as well as exports, hinterland travel, on all medical supplies, building and construction material, and mobile phones. corporate tax on private education and private healthcare were removed. Mortgage interest became income tax deductible, and the log export policy was changed to allow sawmillers to export logs. Following the groundbreaking announcements, citizens were elated with the measures, which they believe were people-oriented and necessary. Government was praised for the $25,000 direct cash transfer to help cushion the negative economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
It's very good. We would like to applaud the government for coming up with such an idea. At least, it can help out a lot, but every household should get it. Every household.
Very good, especially for some person who are not working and getting no money and things.
Parents also welcomed the Because We Care cash grant for school-age students.
I feel very proud because it would help us to buy school clothes, and it would help us to do more things and so on. So I'm just grateful for it.
The COVID-19 relief fund, it would be very beneficial to me as a person and to everyone in the community, which we are very thankful from the President for giving us this great opportunity or a support to us because we really needed it.
I am grateful that what the government is doing for us, and I think there's not no bad idea that he's doing.
Parents can afford certain things for their grandchildren. They got some homes can prepare a proper meal. So very good.
It is not bad because they got some parents, them alone got to do it, and if you get a little help some way, at least we should be thankful because it's not one child, it's every child will be getting it, and that would be nice. And along with that, I'd like for the children that go into the private school, I'd like for them to get something too.
The President is confident that this initiative will provide relief for thousands of students in the country.
This, of course, will bring tremendous help to families, to parents, and to children, by which time they will hopefully be returning to school under the improved situation that we have now as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Pensioners, too, are pleased with the measures in the emergency budget, which cater directly to them. They had this to say.
Being a pensioner, I think it would do me good, and maybe less fortunate people than I am, it would, So I am thankful for whatever is given to us.
In addition to an increase in old age pension, pensioners will now have free water.
In order to reduce the cost of living, put more money back into our pensioners' pocket, and ensure that their welfare and well-being are taken care of, we are going to revert to free water for pensioners.
In 2017, over 4,000 sugar workers were put on the breadline. With the closure of estates across the country, enough alternative options were not put on the table. With the PPPC focused on supporting Gaisuco and reopening their sugar estates, workers and families are happy and positive about the future.
I feel proud about that. The reason for I come from the sugar estate, and I vexed Bad Wales estate close. I'm from there. I used to work there.
That would be amazing because we need the investment because this estate here could do better.
First, when I joined this estate, it was good but the money is small, but it was good. But now they're more worse. And the government coming out, it can be better.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the shores of Guyana in March, there has been a decrease in every sector in the economy. Many persons have been struggling to pay their utility bills, but were still burdened with an additional cost in the form of VAT on their bills. This will no longer be the case as the government announced the items on which VAT will no longer be applicable, including water and electricity.
You cannot manage a country by only taxing and consuming. You had to have a policy, and that's when we crafted our manifesto, that return incentives to the productive sector. So this budget has substantially returned an incentive framework to the productive sectors through the reduction of land rental charges, licensing fees, as I said before, water and electricity, inputs, removal of VAT on inputs. These are going to assist our productive sectors to create more wealth and to generate more employment for people.
Citizens Janelle Bishop and Karan Sugdio are happy with these measures. They explained how this will benefit Guyanese.
It will be very beneficial to me as well as to all Guyanese because we'll be able to save more and should be able to have a better way of managing ourselves as well. In terms of when you save, you get to do more with the money that you would have been putting into the electricity and the water.
I think it's there's a good program. Why is because remember you have poor people, a lot of poor people in this country. 16% VAT is a lot of money.
Terence Singh and Steve Samaru are already counting the additional money in their pockets through the removal of VAT from construction material. They describe the government's initiative as valuable to all Guyanese.
There's a very perfect move by the government because you calculate if you spend $1 million right here and you take out 16% right there, 160,000. I think that's a great move by the government and our president, and it will benefit a lot of poor people. And basically, if the VAT is removed, there's more money in your pocket. So eventually you could complete, you could bill again, more money in people's pocket.
After 19 months of the successful passage of the no confidence motion against the APNU-AFC administration, and by the end of the government's first 40 days in office, and a $329.5 billion emergency budget was placed before the National Assembly. It was a clear demonstration that the Irfan Ali-led government was serious about delivering on its commitments to the people of Guyana in a way that was inclusive, accountable, and beneficial to all. In our next episode, we will examine the government's next 20 days in office and how your elected officials have been working for you.
Thank you for those highlights, Morano. In our third installment, we look at efforts made between days 41 to 60. I'm Stacey Carmichael. Thanks for joining us.